Pokemon Masters, Toby here, and there are over 807 different species of Pokemon. That's not including all the different form variations or gender variants. Pokemon look a lot of different ways, and some of those designs are a little bit cooler than others. Just recently here on the channel, I did a video covering my least favorite Pokemon of every single type, a video that I had stole from Ace Trainer Liam. I didn't steal his video, I made my own. I stole the idea for the video. So today, I am stealing a very obvious sequel to that video that he also did, and again, you can check out his versions in the links below. My favorite Pokemon of every single type. And yeah, what more is there really to explain than that, other than, of course, everything in this video is my opinion. Which of these Pokemon do you like? Which of them do you dislike? You're gonna have to let me know, of course, in the comments. And with that, let's get on to it. The Grass type. Now, my least favorite Grass type Pokemon, for those who can remember, was a starter Pokemon, and of course, that is the same for my favorite. The final evolution of the Pokemon, Turtwig in Torterra. Firstly, the name is fantastic. Terra as in not only terraforming, but also Terra as in it's a terror. And just look at the design of this creature. It's carrying a micro-environment on its back. You can actually imagine smaller Pokemon coming and nesting on the tree on its back, or bug types crawling around all over it. This Pokemon embodies the two types that it consists of, ground and grass. It is the earth. And I'm sure in its design takes references from the world turtle, a very common thing in lots of different fantasy novels and mythologies. The idea of a turtle carrying the world on its back through space, that is Torterra. It's a starter Pokemon that comes with mythological kinds of connotations, and I just love it. Next up is the fire type, and possibly my favorite Pokemon at the moment. Yes, it's no longer Snorlax. Another starter, I'm talking about the one that started the firefighting trend. Blaziken. Yes, Infernape and Emboar did it afterwards, and I actually really like Infernape's design as well. But Blaziken wins out for me. It's not only is it the way it looks currently, but also another favorite Pokemon of mine from of Hoenn is Latios. And Latios and Blaziken used to be the same Pokemon. You can see that in some early concept art. It's just got a lot of traits that I really like, and I really love the flares. Now, I haven't always loved Blaziken. I think originally my favorite Hoenn starter was Swampert, but I've really grown to love this Pokemon over time. And I'm Birdkeeper Toby, and it's like a bird Pokemon that's not a flying type, which is kind of a rarity. Certainly, I can appreciate it. And next up is that water type, so we've covered the starter trio, and that, for me, is Jellicent. Not a starter Pokemon, and I don't really have much of a preference between the male and female versions. The female version kind of reminds me of Kirby, while the male version just reminds me of the Pringles guy. But what I love about this Pokemon, and you're not going to believe me when I say this, is its use competitively. Now, I am not, by nature of that, a competitive player, but out of the one team that I do have and use, I use a Jellicent. No, I'm sure it's not any like Uber tier or anything like that, but Jellicent is a lot of fun. Burning opponents' Pokemon with Scold or Will-O-Wisp, or poisoning them with Toxic, and then using Hex, as well as just being an incredibly bulky Pokemon that can take a lot of hits. Its typing is just great for being a defensive wall, and I personally love my Jellicent. So Jellicent's gonna take this spot. Now we move over to the normal type, and how could it not be Snorlax? Snorlax has been an icon of this channel. If you're new to this channel, if this is the first video you're watching, then you may not know, but Snorlax has appeared across a whole bunch of my different videos. I've talked about it being my favorite Pokemon before. I mean, its relationship to sleeping and eating, what is there not to love about that? That is me through and through. The evil team that we have here on the channel is called Team Snooze, and the key Pokemon, the key mascot is Snorlax. He's right there! He's right there! Snorlax is and will always be a part of this channel. And while no, it's not my favorite Pokemon anymore, it is still one of my favorites, and I'd be remiss to not talk about it and its wonderfulness. Also, it's just one of the big classic Pokemon. Can't not love a Snorlax. Speaking of those classic Pokemon, we're going to move over onto the electric types, and it's Pikachu. And I know, I feel like so many of you are going to call, like, come on, that's just really generic, but what can I say? This Pokemon has been the icon of my childhood. You can't have Pokemon without Pikachu. He's right there as well. They're everywhere in this video. Ash's Pikachu is synonymous with the brand. Pikachu in general, it has that perfect blend of being cute, of being fearsome. It's kind of an animal, but kind of a monster. It is the perfect Pokemon that represents all other Pokemon. It's incredibly gender neutral. Everyone loves a Pikachu. And sadly, as cool as a lot of the other electric types are, none of them are going to beat Pikachu on this list. And Pikachu was, of course, my first Pokemon when I first played Pokemon Yellow. Next up, the Psychic type, and another classic, Mew. Mew is that first Psychic-type mythical Marvel Pokemon. Its ability to transform into any other Pokemon like Ditto is really cool. The idea that any Pokemon that you see could secretly be a Mew in disguise? I mean, imagine if Ash's Pikachu just one day transformed into Mew and it was Mew all along. What could it be? Mew is the ancestor of all Pokemon. There's a lot of cool Pokemon lore there that relates to other series and videos that I've done. It was a focal point of the first movie, and it was one of the hardest Pokemon to obtain. Back when Generation 1 came out, only a handful of people, including game developers, even knew it existed, and this was only because Shigeki Morimoto managed to sneak the Pokemon into the game's code. This Pokemon is single-handedly, and look it up, is single-handedly responsible for, I believe, the success of Pokemon as a franchise, the way it blew up to the way it did back in the 90s. In terms of it coming over here to the West, the idea of the elusive Mew, how do you get it? Is it under the truck? Mew has always had, and will always have, a special place in my heart. Next up, the fighting type, and let me go get this one. You all know I fell in love with him. He was my favorite Pokemon back when Sun and Moon came out. Stuffle. I mean, this one's like life size, and it could be real. It could be real. You all know I love Stuffle. It's because of its cry. Just listen to this. Right? Stuffle is a fantastic Pokemon, and it wins based on cute points alone, and not a lot of Pokemon I like because they're cute. And I, even in my first run-through of Sun and Moon, managed to evolve my Stuffle into a Beware, but I immediately regretted it. Beware is a very cool Pokemon, and I love it very much, but Stuffle just has something about it that I don't want to evolve that Pokemon, and it's very rare that I ever want to keep the pre-evolution. So yeah, Stuffle is my favorite fighting type Pokemon. Now we move on to the rock types, and when you think of rock types, you can't not think of fossil Pokemon, in particular, Tyrantrum. Now, there's two fossil Pokemon that I really love, Tyrantrum and Omastar. Omastar because, of course, praise Lord Helix. But Tyrantrum has that look about it, that Jurassic Park T-Rex look, that just makes you go, man, this Pokemon is the king of the ancient world. Back when I was talking about this video in my top 10 favorite Pokemon from Kalos video, I said the same thing. I'm gonna say the same thing now that I said then. It just looks cool. I mean, that's it. That's my reason for loving it. It looks cool. Isn't that enough sometimes? Now we move on to the ground type, a Pokemon I love for a far more channel-related reason, and that is Steelix. The first Pokemon theory that I ever did on this channel, one that I came up with on my own, one that I believe put this channel on the map in relation to other PokeTubers, was a video about Steelix, about how all Onix look like the Crystal Onix from the show, and their exterior is what makes them the rock type, but their inner core is actually, it's not crystal, it's made of diamond, and that's shown through Mega Steelix in its evolution. There's a bunch more evidence, I'll link to that video below. But Steelix is the iconic steel Pokemon. I mean, it and Scizor were just known that when the steel type got introduced in Generation 2, it was those two Pokemon and Magneton, and those two people being the new Pokemon, they were the poster childs for the steel type. Jasmine Steelix was of course iconic, and just Steelix as a Pokemon in general, I just think looks incredibly fierce, incredibly cool. Again, it's a riff on the original boss Pokemon from the first gym, Onix, that being Brock's Onix, so it's just got so much about it that makes me love Steelix. It's really no wonder for me that it's on this list. And the only reason that it's on the ground part and not the steel part is because there happens to be a steel Pokemon that I love even more. And moving on to the flying type, this Pokemon is also a ground type. That means it's one of two. Which one's it going to be? Is it going to be Gliscor or Landorus? Gliscor or Landorus? Gliscor or Landorus? Did you pick? Which one was it? It's Landorus. But not just any Landorus, I actually hate the original Landorus design. It's one of my least favorite Pokemon. It's the Landorus Therian form. Now you'd think being Birdkeeper Toby, this should be a bird Pokemon, but there is not a flying Pokemon that I love more than Landorus Therian form. It's a tiger flying on clouds. Oh, with a giant mustache. Just like Jellicent, they can have a little mustachy thing that they've got going on there. Anyway, Landorus Therian form is cool, like really cool. Getting access to them in the Dream Radar minigame was a lot of fun, and it added so much more to a Pokemon that, like I say, its classic incarnate forms, they just leave a lot to be desired. They don't look anything like Pokemon, but this Pokemon, Landorus Therian form, it looks like a Pokemon, like a beast, like an animal. A tiger riding on clouds. That's the kind of thing a Pokemon should be. Also, competitively, it's a lot of fun. Just Choice Scarf or Choice Bandit, maybe give it like U-Turn or Earthquake. And yes, I know it's super weak to Ice type, but you can always U-Turn out of there. I know, I just love this Pokemon a lot. Now we move on to the Bug type, and again, it's a current generation Pokemon. Glossiopod. Definitely pronouncing it wrong. Glossiopod. Glossiopod. I mean, this Pokemon really represents everything the bug type has to offer. I love lots of the other big giant bug Pokemon, Yanmega, Heracross, Scyther, but this Pokemon, wow, Alola bought their bug game, like, with them. It's no wonder it is the symbol of the evil team that is Team Skull. Heck, if Team Snooze didn't have Snorlax, we'd have Glossiopod. It's awesome. I also, again, like using this Pokemon in competitive play whenever I do happen to play competitively. You might think its special ability ability Emergency Exit, which forces it to leave the battle once it's down to half health, is a bad thing, but au contraire. Give it a bunch of priority moves like Aqua Jet or Sucker Punch and you're guaranteed to get a few hits in, switch out, you get a new Pokemon in. It's a great Pokemon to pivot around, and if you give it a Citrus Berry, or even better, the even more powerful Leech Life in this current generation, well then it's likely to get off its effect multiple times. I just think this Pokemon is incredibly cool. Now we move on to the Poison type, and for this one I'm going to say another new Pokemon, an Ultra Beast in fact. Poipole. The Poison type is not a type that has a lot of Pokemon I love, and while certainly there's like the Bulbasaur line in there, and they are classic Pokemon I love, Poipole is very interesting. For one, according to its Pokedex entries, it may well have been a starter Pokemon for the people in Ultra Megalopolis. In many ways, Poipole is much a starting Pokemon as Bulbasaur or any other poison potentially. Is there any other part poison? No, there's not. Also, it has both that alien look that makes you think, oh wow, this is an Ultra Beast, but also that kind of pixie look that makes you think, oh, maybe it's related to like legendary Pokemon like our own mythical Pokemon. Just the idea of this legendary kind of a brand new Ultra Beast type Pokemon, it's an alien. This Pokemon is actually a starter Pokemon for some reason, just tells such a great story about Pokemon lore, plus it's got a really awesome evolution. So yeah, Poipole, you're my Poison type on this list. Right, we're getting a little bit more closer to the end, there's a few more types left to go. Let's start having a look at, say, the Dark type, including Crocodile. And Crocodile, again for competitive reasons, is one of my favorite Pokemon. I love its ability, Moxie. You kill a Pokemon, you faint a Pokemon, and it gets a boosted attack stat. So if you give this Pokemon a Choice Scarf and it's guaranteed to hit first, it's what's called a Revenge Killer. Let's say I'm using my Glosia Pod from earlier, I've got Aqua Jet or First Impression or Sucker Punch, and I've done a bit of damage, and they've done a bit of damage to me, forcing my Pokemon to switch out. Well, now I can bring out Crocodile, a Pokemon with a pretty decent attack stat and some cool typing, Dark and Ground, good stab moves in Crunch and Earthquake, or powerful moves in Stone Edge or even Outrage, and then use that Pokemon to take down the remaining health because it's got a Choice Scarf and it's full speed, so it's likely to hit first, and then it gets the Moxie boost. Now it's not just got a decent attack stat, it's got a great attack stat. And if it manages to KO yet another Pokemon by staying in battle, as long as they don't have something that can avoid Earthquake, which granted is a pretty common thing for people to have on their teams, but get them in the right situation and Crocodile can be a sweeper. Also, it's just a cool Generation 5 looking Pokemon. I know in my least favorite video I was giving Generation 5 a lot of slack. Crocodile, one of my favorite Pokemon ever. In my top 6, even. And I'll get to more of my top 6, like my perfect team Pokemon, a little bit later on. I've actually probably already mentioned some of them. But let's have a little look now at the Ghost type. Another type where there are lots of cool Pokemon and it's hard to pick, but I think I have to go with Rotom. Rotom has sort of become just not a mascot of Pokemon, but it's certainly a very iconic Pokemon. I think its placement in Generation 4, inside the Pokedex, where there was only one of it in the game and it was quite towards the end of the Pokedex, so people were like, is this a legendary Pokemon, isn't it? It's cool typing of Ghost and Electric, and its whole idea of being a plasma Pokemon that can get inside technology, all of its new forms, and then in Usum, in Sun and Moon, it got the Pokedex form. Rotom is just a Pokemon that gets shown a lot of love, and I can see why. It's a cute, simple design. I think Game Boy Luke got very lucky using it as his mascot and it becoming synonymous with him. There's not much more to say. Again, this is just one of those Pokemon that all I can say is, it's cool. Also, I've done so many Pokemon theories about it. Like, this Pokemon is Pokemon Theory Central. Okay, so next up on the list is the Ice type, and I'm going to talk about another one of the big classics, Lapras. Surfing through the Orange Islands on Lapras's back, how is that nostalgia? Or how about in Generation 2 when you would surf on any Pokemon's back and it would look like Lapras, or even in the latest games with Pokeride. Lapras is the seafaring Pokemon. You sit on its back and it'll take you from A to B. It is a Pokemon that can be friendly or fierce, can be bulky or aggressive, powerful ice beams and avalanches, or rests and sleep talks. Lapras is a Pokemon that just manages to find its way into everyone's heart somewhere along the lines, and heck, even Red, the most powerful Pokemon trainer, he uses a Lapras. It's also because it's a Pokemon that's gifted to you quite frequently, certainly in the original games, and then again in X and Y, and then again as the Pokeride Pokemon in Sun and Moon and Ultra Moon, it is a Pokemon that finds its way onto a lot of people's journeys, I suppose. Lapras is the perfect Pokemon to surf around on. Now, you'll remember back when I was talking about Steelix, I said there was a Steel Pokemon that I preferred more than it, and that is what this is, the Steel entry, Metagross. More specifically, Mega Metagross. Metagross on its own looks incredible, and I used to play with one competitively, giving it a choice band and then having it use powerful moves like either Meteor Mash or Earthquake or Brick Break. Bullet Punch in there for some extra speed, but I thought it was really sad how I was limited to one option because Choice Scarf means you can only use one attack, and that attack is incredibly well boosted in power. And then when Oras came out, in came Mega Metagross, a considerably stronger version of Metagross that allowed me to use all of its moves at once. And let's face it, the design and promotion of this Pokemon is perfect. I don't think I know anyone who doesn't like the look of this Pokemon, but also this Pokemon was so well promoted, not just in the fact that it's Champion Steven's main Pokemon, but also when Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were coming out, they were giving away shiny Beldum so that everyone could have a shiny Mega Metagross on their team. And why wouldn't you want to? This Pokemon is completely awesome and definitely one of my favorites on my top 6 team for sure. And it's right up there with another Pokemon that's heavily associated with Steven and the Hoenn adventure, and that is Latias, my favorite Dragon-type Pokemon. And that's a hard thing to pick. I mean, there's a lot of cool Dragon-type Pokemon out there, Rayquaza especially. But Latias, as I've mentioned it earlier in relation to Blaziken, it's just got something about its design which is, I think, really great and simple. I always preferred Latios, I don't know what it was, it just, something more friendly about Latias. Maybe it's just to prefer the color red over blue because, you know, red's the leader of the Power Rangers. Red is the cool color. Red. Red's the guy you play as in Pokemon. I don't know. Whatever it is, Latias is the Pokemon I prefer. I much prefer their classic versions to their Mega Evolutions. Latias as a Pokemon in the movie as well, and Pokemon Heroes had so much personality. I don't know, it's just a Pokemon that I absolutely adore. And there's also a Pokemon theory that it links in with, one that it links in with my favorite Fairy-type Pokemon. And that is the final Pokemon on this list, Togepi. Did you ever notice the triangle on Latias and Latios's chest? They're an awful lot like the ones that you find on Togepi eggshells, and I did a whole video about that, one of my Pokemon epics. And yes, my favorite fairy Pokemon to end this video on a slightly smaller, lighter note is Togepi. It's adorable, it's classic, it's iconic. And I think the rule of thumb is becoming that if I've got one of it in my room, then yes, I love it. And this Togepi egg is like one of my favorite things. And I think that's just it. The whole idea of Pokemon eggs were brought about through Togepi, even in the original artwork for Pokemon eggs. They don't look how they look in Pokemon Go. When Pokemon eggs were first introduced in Generation 2, I think the thing that a lot of people were familiar with was Togepi's egg and Togepi hatching in the show, becoming Misty's signature Pokemon, a Pokemon filled with mystery as well. Like when you think back to classic Pokemon, you think Ash and Pikachu, Brock, and then Misty and Togepi, even though it's a Generation 2 Pokemon. It just came into the show so early that a lot of people just think of it synonymous with the first generation before realizing that it's not part of that gen at all. So yes, Togepi, again, one of my favorites. That said, there are a lot of Pokemon that I have a lot of problems with, and I've covered those in a video called My Least Favorite Pokemon of each type. However, if you're tired of hearing my opinions, then you can always head over to Adrian Liam's channel and check out his videos on the same topic, where I totally stole this idea and the thumbnails from. And of course, let me know your opinions and how horribly wrong I am about my favorite Pokemon, or how horribly right I am in the comments below. So hi, Pokemon Masters. Thank you so much to those of you who are supporting me on Patreon. Because of you, we are now up to double uploads every single week. And of course, you can check the links in the description to come hang out in the Birdkeeper Toby Discord.